What I'm going to start with today is a free Teal account, and I have already kind of gotten in here a little bit. So when you first sign up for Teal, something you'll notice upon first hitting this homepage is a little checklist down here towards the bottom that really helps you figure out kind of those like key actions to take as soon as you're getting started. But like I mentioned, I've already kind of gone through a little bit, so we can move along and I can show you some of the meat and potatoes of this homepage. So the first thing I wanted to point out is when you first get started with Teal, you have the option to identify your career goal. This is really helpful if you're a visual learner or if you're someone who's visual and you like to keep track of your goals and anything that you have coming up visually. This is a really great opportunity for you. Essentially, when you edit these goals, you can decide what your target title is, what is the role you're really looking for, the target date you would like to get into a new role, the minimum salary you're interested in accepting, the maximum salary if you have a maximum, and the currency that you're searching in. This can be really helpful as you're bookmarking jobs to kind of refer back to that goal and make sure that you're aligning with yourself. Some other cool features of the homepage here. The first is this job applications widget. So we'll show you a little bit of the job tracker later on, but essentially as you're bookmarking jobs and you're applying to jobs, you can keep track of how many applications you've sent here. The goal right here, as you can see, is set to 5, but this can be adjusted, and that way weekly you can keep track of those applications. The other function here is the job search pipeline. This is one of my personal favorites because I really love to see how I progress over time. And so in Teal, as you're bookmarking jobs, applying, interviewing, hopefully getting to that negotiation and acceptance of the offer, you can see all of that activity here in this widget. So essentially, you'll be able to see your all-time overview of what that activity looked like in your job search, which is really cool. Some other things to take note of just quickly is you'll see on the right, based on the jobs you have bookmarked in Teal, we will actually pull the top 10 skills that we're seeing throughout all of those jobs. That way you can really make sure that, again, you're aligning with those keywords, you're aligning with those top skills, and we'll get into some more of the details there in a second. And then lastly, priorities are related to jobs that you have in the applying stage or that you've marked with great excitement, you really want to keep up with. So again, this just lets you kind of keep all of that in one place and really visual for you to keep track of. Awesome. I am going to move us right along to the resume builder. Perfect. So when you get started in Teal, the first thing you're going to see when you come to the resume builder is the option to import either an existing resume or your LinkedIn profile. So you have both options. I'm going to go with LinkedIn today. I'm going to use our fabulous Tina Miller. The Zoom bar always gets in the way when I'm trying to switch tabs. There we go. Import that LinkedIn profile data, and what you're going to see is all of that LinkedIn experience and details populate right here in the resume builder. You can import this, or you can decide to manually add all of these details into the resume builder, but we do think that it's really helpful to kind of get that first foundational start by either importing an existing resume or importing that LinkedIn profile. Leah, you mentioned to me earlier how Teal kind of mimics the ATS import. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I love about Teal is that it literally is mimicking an applicant tracking system. So applicant tracking systems have core functionalities. It's meant to house and store data, and it's also meant to use as an aid for streamlining the process. No, they are not robots. They are not determining who is qualified based on the text, but the resume builder and applicant tracking systems essentially is pulling the HTML, if you will, or the physical text on screen of your resume, of your LinkedIn profile. And LinkedIn kind of has already established on your profile what looks like a resume. It has your name, your contact info, there's a work experience section, there's an about section, which is kind of like your professional summary, there's an education section. So really what Teal is doing is pulling that HTML and pulling the name and attaching it to name in Teal. It's pulling your work experience and attaching it to the work experience in Teal and helping you build that resume really simultaneously easy. What makes it a little bit more manual is if you are starting from scratch, you have the ability to literally start from scratch. You can start from square one. It's a little bit more manual. Takes a lot of time to get the foundation, but that is also a great way to own and manage of every single piece of data that is put into your resume. If you'd like to import your current resume, you may run into a few roadblocks along the way, and that can sometimes link to formatting errors. So if you've got multiple columns, if you've got graphics, whatever it is in your current resume that you have, sometimes that's not parsable within applicant tracking systems and is harder for the application to pull that data and to pull that text and to realize that that is your work experience and that is your about section and that is your education. I've had this run into several times with job seekers before where they've had sometimes instead of adding the like insert or indentation, they'll add a bunch of spaces to show the date on the other side of their resume. That actually can warp how the data is pulled from your resume, and it may show up in a different section. So if you are importing a resume or you're importing another piece of text that maybe isn't your LinkedIn profile, you may have run into those scenarios. So that's just a little bit of a heads up on why that happens and why it has difficulty in Teal reading your current data there.
Such a good thing to know. Thank you, Leah. That's something I just learned recently too. And with the Teal format, we try to put all of those details you're importing into the appropriate order, like Leah mentioned. If it doesn't come out perfect, it's really easy to edit and change and make sure that that information gets to where it needs to go. So for example, if you're noticing like maybe something's left off, you can easily add, you can easily edit, you can make sure that it's still reflecting that original document, even if the parsing is a little confused because the HTML doesn't read or write exactly to what we have. So great point. It's really important to understand that the technology tries really hard, but sometimes it gets a little stuck. So we're always here to help you if things are a little wonky. For example, like you can see here, when I imported the LinkedIn, this is probably looks really great on a LinkedIn profile, but you might not want this long of a professional summary on your resume. So you can easily, truncate that by just removing text that you're no longer interested in showcasing. So the editor is meant to be really straightforward, and we have lots and lots of support resources to help you get comfortable with the editor. So I'm going to go ahead and just showcase a couple of things that are sort of our most frequently asked questions about the editor. The first is when you import your experiences into Teal, they are automatically going to be sorted into reverse chronological order. So your most recent position is going to be on the top. Your least recent position is going to be on the bottom. If you're someone who doesn't want to sort in chronological or reverse chronological, you can easily turn this off and then click, drag, and drop these experiences to where you'd like them to be. The same thing can be done for your achievements. So you can move these around a little bit. Or within a single company, if you have multiple roles, you can go ahead and just click, drag, and drop. So it makes it really easy to get all of those, details into the order that you'd prefer. And we'll go over some other style choices that you have as well. Something else I wanted to point out about the resume builder is, speaking of kind of guidance and help, when you click into areas on the resume builder, like target title, for example, you'll see that this right side is automatically going to take you to our guidance. Guidance can be found up here in your toolbar, but will also auto-populate on the right-hand side here. The guidance is really helpful because, for example, if this is the first time you've ever written a target title on your resume, you might be wondering, what do I include? So the guidance is meant to provide some suggestions. Another area this is really helpful is when you're adding achievements. We have a few different options in our guidance here for achievements. The first is suggestions for things you might want to consider as you're writing your achievement. The second is assistant, which is one of my favorite tools. This allows you to essentially kind of Mad Libs style your achievements into the builder. So for example, you can select one of our already chosen, action verbs to make sure that you're really pulling in those key components of achievements that we find to be really important. You might decide to add metrics. You might also decide to connect your action. And then all of that result can be easily saved and added into your resume. So that way you can make sure that you're collecting that work, adding it to your resume, and then deciding if you want to use it for those applications. And then moving forward, a big topic of conversation right now is AI generation in a resume. How do you use AI to help generate your resume? And what does Teal offer? So right now, Teal offers AI generation in 3 different places. And I'm going to show you what this looks like from the free version. So as a free user in Teal, you have a couple of AI generation credits that are available for you to use. The first would be in your professional summary. As you can see, there's 2 credits available for you here. You click Generate with AI, and we are going to pull details from your resume, and if you've matched to a job, potentially important details from that job. Like if they're mentioning certain metrics or certain keywords you have in your resume already, we can kind of pair those 2 together. And then you have a professional summary that you can edit, make your own, but that's been generated by AI to kind of give you that first step. The second is achievements. So right now for achievements, you have 5 generations available. You hit this generate with AI. And again, this works best when you're matched to a job. And I'll show you all about matching mode, and it's really great. But you go ahead and generate, and this will give you an opportunity to have an achievement added to your resume. Leah and I are really excited about something coming up in just a few days here. We are actually going to have some new functionality in our AI generation for achievements. What you're going to see is more customization and control of building your achievements. So a big request we've gotten in the past is, can I add a custom prompt and kind of build an achievement with AI the way that I want to? The answer is now going to be yes. You'll be able to choose keywords. You'll be able to choose places from the job description that you want to pull from. And all of that can be customized into an achievement that you easily save into your resume. I'm pumped.
I'm pumped. This is exactly what you've been asking for. We've been working on it, and now we can't wait to release it. It'll be coming out in the next couple days. Just doing a couple QA work on the back end, but this is going to be a game changer. This is essentially taking what prompt you would put in ChatGPT and just moving it over to Teal. So you can now own the input, so your output is generated what you'd like.
Yes, we're so excited. And we're excited to learn from you too. We're excited to see what prompts you use. We're excited to see kind of how it all pulls together for you. And you will also see an increase in those credits given per free user. That way you can really get comfortable with the AI generation before you decide to subscribe to Teal Plus. And Teal Plus is unlimited AI generation. So the free version gives you an opportunity to kind of get in there and play around and see if it's a tool that really is adding value for your search. And if it is, then you can upgrade for those unlimited generations. So really excited, stay tuned. Hopefully next week's webinar, we can go ahead and showcase that functionality live. Really excited. The last place that AI generation exists is in the cover letter generator. So that is right up here in your toolbar under cover letter. And this is where you have the opportunity to, 1, match to a job that you have bookmarked in your job tracker, another function that we'll go over in just a few. And then 2, generate a cover letter using AI. So you can see with the free version, you have 1 credit that can be used for cover letter generation. That cover letter can then be tweaked and tailored to any job you apply for. And you can go ahead and just generate that cover letter. Leah, there are so many opinions on cover letters. What do you hear and what are your thoughts?
I'd love to see people's reactions. Let me know a thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you love cover letters? Do you hate them? I'll give my opinion as a recruiter and some advice on how you can utilize cover letters to your advantage. As a job seeker, I probably don't love writing cover letters. It feels like I'm writing an essay on top of everything I'm already doing. As a recruiter, a well-written cover letter can actually add an advantage and add more depth and scope into your skill set and your knowledge base that can help with your candidacy. With any sort of AI, and I'm talking about a professional summary generated, I'm talking about your achievements, any sort of cover letter, anything that is generated with AI, please remember that AI doesn't know your inner workings of your mind. It can only go so far. So the AI can only reproduce as much information as it knows. And the AI within Teal is generated based on comparing it to your experience and the job description that you're matching. So with that being said, any result that you do get from AI, whether it's with Teal, whether it's Claude, Bard, ChatGPT, it is your responsibility to edit the output and make sure that it accurately reflects the information that you want to articulate. If it doesn't align with your experience, edit it and make it so that it does. Teal kind of generates suggestions based on the data provided from your resume, based on the data provided from the job description, but it does not know you 100% and what your mind wants. That is also why some of the updates are coming out with our new AI, so you can kind of own more of that output. But with the cover letter, essentially what Teal is doing is it's taking your information, it's taking the job description that you align with, and it's creating a cover letter that is supposed to amplify and be an additional resource to your candidacy for a job. So what it's going to do is going to give you everything. It's going to give you a long form cover letter with a lot of data that you can then scale back and really fine tune and edit. If you've ever thought that they're going to know that it's written by AI. Yes, AI does have a generated pattern of text that AI tends to follow. But what it is doing the work for you and pulling the information and helping you kind of align your experience. What a cover letter should do is add value and not just necessarily regurgitate everything that's already written. So great ways that you can amplify your cover letter is talking about some of the wins and some of the achievements that you've done in your past roles that may not necessarily be completely went in depth on your resume. So talk about one project or two projects that you worked on. Compile the data. How long did it take? What specific tools did you use? Rather than just listing that you've worked with a specific program in your skills section, you're utilizing your cover letter to talk about the depth and how you've used that program that is specifically called out in the job description to your advantage in your past work experience. What a cover letter is not is to highlight any reason you may not be qualified for a role or highlight any sort of information that isn't relative. I don't like seeing in cover letters I've seen in past where someone has said, I may not be meeting all the qualifications on the job description, but I'll work really hard. What that in turn is doing is subconsciously putting that seed of doubt in a recruiter's mind of they don't actually meet the qualifications, so I'll move on. So I definitely wouldn't write about why you're not qualified or to ask someone to take a chance. Focus specifically on what you bring to the table, something that you are excited to talk about and how that directly relates to this specific role, not just any role, because a recruiter is hiring a specific role. If I'm hiring a marketing manager for this company, Western Union, as listed on the screen, I'm hiring for this role. I'm not hiring a marketing manager at any other company. I'm hiring for this specific company, and I have a job to do, and that's to fill this role to help drive the business forward. So utilize that when you are putting together your cover letter. Now, if you're wondering, should I add a cover letter if it doesn't ask for it? That's completely up to you. If you feel like you want to add a cover letter, is it going to add value? Is it going to hurt your application? Can only help. If you don't want to add it, that's also up to you. I think they can add some great value. As a recruiter, if you take the time to write a cover letter, I am going to read that. However, I'll leave you with this last piece of wisdom is keep it short and sweet and to the point. No one wants to read a 10-page document on what makes you qualified. We want to get right to the point and call out the specific details. Right now, the cover letter generator allows you to edit in real time, and then you can put it into a document. You can copy and paste this into any application where they say questions have like any other information you wish to add. You can just copy and paste that and put it right into the job application itself. But that's why it doesn't pull it as a PDF right now, because there's different variations of where you can put your cover letter. And we want to make sure that you are able to edit the output and make sure that the cover letter reflects the information you accurately want to represent. So hopefully that helps.
Super helpful. Thank you. And like Leah mentioned, when you're finished generating that cover letter, this copy text button down here allows you to easily copy that cover letter and put it into the document that Leah mentioned that you're working on. So that's all right here for you. Perfect. Another big function of our resume builder that a lot of people spend time in is the design mode. And this is where we'll talk about some style and formatting options that you have as you're building out your resume. We do want to mention, and we think this is important, Teal has primarily been based in US standards and requirements for resume structure. So we do get feedback sometimes and questions about including certain things into the format. We are always open to feedback. So if there's something that's not included in the formatting or style guide here, please let us know. We're interested in expanding, but like we mentioned, this has been primarily focused on the US standards for resumes. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through this design mode. So in design mode, there's a lot of really cool things you can do. The first is you can choose a template for your resume. We have 4 offered here with more coming. Really excited about those too. So you can go ahead and choose a template for your resume. You can also choose how some of your details are ordered or organized. So for example, kind of like Leah mentioned in the cover letter and making sure that key details are just really front and center, you can have the choice to either organize your resume here by company or by position. If you'd prefer to have your experiences shown by position, you can do that here. You can decide where your dates live, whether they're left aligned or right aligned. You can show locations by company or position, and you can show dates by company or position too. You have some both options as well if you really want to keep everything on there in order. Styling, you can change the font. We also have some accent colors if you want to make that name and those headers really bold and bright. You can do that here. You can also change the visual style of your dates. We get a lot of feedback about how this is US standard, and so that's again why we wanted to mention that this has been designed for US requirements, but again, we are always open to feedback. And then you can also adjust your margins. So you can adjust from small, medium to large. Something else to consider here is you can reorder your sections. So let's say that you want to have your skills towards the top. You can do that by clicking and dragging and dropping that section there. Or maybe your education you want right under your skills. All of this can be organized in the design mode. Like I mentioned, we get a lot of feedback and a lot of questions about design and formatting, what should be included, what shouldn't be included. Luckily, we have Leah here who's going to share a couple of tips as to how you should really think about the format of your resume.
Yeah, great segue. So one of the most asked questions I think I see on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on any of sort of these sites is, why can't I add pictures or graphics or columns or charts? And that's because as a recruiter, I'm looking at the text. I don't care about if you have a bubble chart or a graphic that has smiley faces. That does not add value. And I'd actually like to give this advice while showing it in real time. So Emily, if you could open your web browser and look up resume format in the text, I want to show guys how you can focus less on the format and focus more on, this is perfect. Yeah, resume format, focus more on the content, and then go to images. Wonderful. And I'd love for you to pick, there's the second column, there's a pink resume with a lovely picture. So we're going to talk about how your resume should be formatted, and we're going to use this as an example. So a lot of websites will offer really designed resumes, and I see people saying that I'm a designer, and I hear that having an overly designed resume is what will make me stand out. So if we're taking a look at this resume specifically, you've got almost a whole half of the page is dedicated to contact, technical, your hobbies, and languages. We've now taken all of your information and we've now skewed it into like almost 2/3, maybe a little bit more than half of the page. So now you only have less than half of the page to actually talk about your experience, your skill set, and your achievements. We've now taken a big focus away from our experience and we've put it on our picture. Now, I know that different countries have different requirements on what they need to put on your resume. I know some countries you have to put a picture. We typically don't gear that because it adds biases into the evaluation process. So we've already taken all of our wonderful knowledge, all of our skill set, all of the work experience that we've achieved, and we're now focusing on our picture, we're focusing on our contact information, our hobbies. Again, this is really not talking about your experience and what value you bring to a company. So that is why we don't offer like many design formatting that has like multiple columns. If you see in some of the other examples from the Google results. It's basically taking your eyesight away from your experience and moving it onto something else, whether it's a different section or something that doesn't necessarily add value to your candidacy. I also don't love adding hobbies to a resume, because I'm looking at your qualifications and your hobbies are great and that's part of who you are as a person, but that's not going to determine whether or not you get qualified for this specific role. Now, going back to the Teal resume builder, why we don't have multiple columns, which we are working on some new features to add for future design templates for multiple columns. Those actually tend to not parse well, especially when created in a document form. When you scroll, if you just highlight over, Emily, on this resume from the top down on the resume to the bottom, it is going to show what the system is reading. It is reading it in that order. And when you have multiple columns, depending on how you're formatting in a document, it may not read that top down. So while you have 2 columns for your work experience, it may have the words jumbled up in different sentences. I've definitely had this happen in my past when reviewing resumes. It doesn't make any sense. It can't parse well. Another reason why we don't offer overly designed formatting is because it is really just showcasing anything but your qualifications. So if you want a really designed formatted resume that hides or distracts your qualifications, you are welcome to submit a resume like that. But it is focusing the qualifications away from what it is that the recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. We're simply just looking at the text on your resume. I want to know, do you meet the years of experience? Do you have the skill set in the programs that I'm looking for? And can I easily find that on your resume itself? So that's why we've basically stripped away everything from an overly designed or fantastical resume that makes you stand out, and really focusing on standing you out in a way that showcases your qualifications, because it's really just adding a more distraction to the resume. I did see one of the questions in our Q&A about wanting to omit the month and date of your resume, and I'll give kind of a little explanation as to why. Typically, you want to showcase the tenure that you've been at a company. That showcases how long you've been there. It showcases maybe the depth and scope of the work that you've achieved. I had a candidate who applied to a role that said they were there from 2019 to 2020. And we were bringing that to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager went on their LinkedIn and saw that they were only there from December 2019 to January 2020. So while their resume reads that they've been there 2 years, they were really only there for 2 months. And that actually paused for some concern for the hiring manager to ask, why is it that they want to hide their experience? In my experience, own it. I've been at companies for 90 days. It wasn't a great fit, and I left the company for something else. So I just say own it. We want to see the tenure that you've been there. When you're entering it in manually in Workday, we all hate Workday. It's going to ask for the month and date that you've been there. So I would just stick to keeping the month and date.
Awesome. Thanks for covering that, Leah. That is a big question that we get, so it's always helpful to know kind of the logic there. Awesome. So before we move into matching mode and analysis mode, which are 2 of our biggest features in the resume builder, I just wanted to go ahead and mention that when you're building your resume, the goal is that Teal kind of keeps track of your work history as a whole, right? And for each resume that you build in Teal, you can customize that to the job you're applying for by easily using these little selectors. For example, if you're applying to a role and you have maybe 10 achievements listed under one of these positions, and you only want to use a few, you can decide which ones are going to appear on this resume by simply just clicking into the checkbox. So as you can see, when I remove it, it doesn't appear on the preview, and then I can easily add that back in. The goal is to not delete a bunch of things from your work history, right? So that way you have to remember what you removed and then add it back in. Visually, this makes it really easy to see what you've left off of your resume. And that way for the next one, you can decide if you want to keep it on or if you want to leave it off as well. All right, so when you are building your resume, the hope and dream is that you're thinking about a job, a specific position, so you can go ahead and tailor that resume to the job. Enter matching mode. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what matching mode looks like in the free version of Teal. You'll notice that for most of the functionality we just showed you, in the free version, you're getting everything. There aren't paywalls that occur in the design or the build of the resume other than in that AI generation. And so I'm going to show you right now what matching mode looks like from a free Teal user, and then I'll show you later on what it looks like as a Teal Plus user. As a free Teal user, when you are matched to a job, and this is showing this job because I already matched to it in the cover letter mode, but you can easily switch and choose other jobs to match to as well. When you're matched to a job, you're going to get the top skills or keywords from that job description. Depending on the length of the job description also determines kind of how many skills we can surface. So for example, you see there's only one skill here, but let me go ahead and switch over to a different job description, and you can see those top 5 skills or keywords that exist in the job description that we would suggest having in your resume. In matching mode, you can see here that there are a couple skills that I already have in my resume, but I want to know where those exist. So I'm going to click highlight, and that's going to tell me where in my resume I mention the keyword email. Or if I want to hit marketing, that'll show me where in my resume I mentioned the keyword marketing. And if the keyword doesn't exist, you'll see this little status here that shows that the keyword was not found in your resume. Another note of matching mode is that there's a couple of tabs here for you to use. Job description is going to show you where in the job description those keywords are being pulled from. So this can be really helpful as you're trying to contextualize your achievements that you're building, so you know exactly how that keyword is being used directly from the job description. You can also edit the job description if you want to take out like benefits or any details that you're just not interested in capturing for the purpose of this exercise. You can remove those by clicking the edit job description button here. And then lastly, I wanted to show you job notes. So while you're reviewing these keywords, you might decide that you want to take note on the fact that they talk about customer lifecycle. You don't really feel like you touch on that very much in your resume, or maybe it's something you want to add into your cover letter. You can add a note here, something like talk about customer lifecycle in my cover letter. And this is going to be saved for that job throughout your entire experience with it in Teal. So that way you can always refer back to those job notes. Leah, I'd love to know a little bit more about keyword matching, kind of what that looks like from an ATS perspective, and what are some of your tips or tricks when it comes to including those keywords?
Yeah, so I'd love to dispel the myth right then and here. Applicant tracking systems, what they are not is they are not physically reading your resume, determining you're not qualified, and then automatically rejecting you. What Teal does is it mimics what some applicant tracking systems have, which are kind of a rating system or a matching score. That doesn't necessarily say they'll reject everyone, but it'll probably pop up in their internal system to say that they're not a great match. Then the recruiter can review that and then reject or move forward. Why these systems aren't perfect is because the data of which you word your resume does not always transfer well into the computer analyzing and reading your text. So always keep that in mind when you are matching or you're hearing ATS friendly, whatever that may mean to you. The systems are not as smart as you think they are. They're actually really clunky and very non-user friendly on the back end. If they could be improved, I'm sure they'd probably improve that, but there's a lot that goes into the back end. So I'd love to shift all of your mindset away from beating a system and more on showcasing your value that you bring. Because if you're going to be thinking about beating a system, what you're going to see is a resume that makes absolutely no sense, and anyone reading it really just won't understand who it is that you do. Now, when we talk about keyword matching, the job description itself is like a guide. It tells you exactly what it is that a company wants when they're looking at an ideal candidate. Hiring managers or recruiters, depending on who's writing this job description, puts these words on the job description for a reason. For example, we recently had an opening for a back-end Ruby on Rails engineer. We specifically stated that we were looking for someone with Ruby on Rails experience, and we received a ton of applications that had no mention of Ruby or Rails 6. Whatever it is that the job description was asking for, we weren't seeing any of that. And so we can't really determine what you know unless you spell it out. So these keywords here are highlighted as suggestions. We have hard skills, there's soft skills as a suggestion of what you probably want to use. Now, another thing that keywords can help for in the applicant tracking system is a lot like if you're searching on LinkedIn or you're searching on Google. If I search in LinkedIn, I search for software engineer. It's going to pull any text within software engineer on someone's profile. You can search for in posts, whatever it is that you are looking for. The keyword search terms are basically using keywords. So that is essentially what Teal is doing. It's pulling and analyzing the hard skills, the soft skills, if there's specific programs. It's also highlighting anything that is mentioned more than once. So if you've ever seen, like this one says email, that's probably because email is mentioned several times in the job description. And so the data is being analyzed that it's a high priority thing to be included because it's been listed so many times in the job description. Again, these systems aren't perfect and they can't always determine exactly what it is that the person is looking for. So when you want to tailor your resume and you think about keywords, if you're thinking, I don't want to use the word email in my resume, you don't have to. As long as you are clearly demonstrating that the words on your resume aligns with the job description, which is not making up something or lying about your experience, it's taking the job description and what the company is looking for, and then asking yourself, going line by line, have I ever done this in a past experience, whether current, previous, or 10 years ago? Have I ever done this? That is what you're going to want to highlight, and that is what you're going to want to showcase. And anything that is not relevant, you can just take all that information off. If I'm hiring a back-end software engineer and you're listing that you wrote a paper on elephants, that's great, but it's not really relevant towards the job that I'm looking for. You really want to just spell it out as easy as possible. If anyone were looking at your resume, they would know exactly what you are qualified for, and that it makes sense that you are qualified for this specific role, because it's a recruiter's job, again, to fill a specific role, and it is not their job to determine what roles that you might be a good fit for.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. That's super insightful. And so, yeah, it's important to spend time here in matching mode. And again, really make sure that you're digesting that job description and not just looking at the keywords and just adding them in there to get that match score up. The match score is great, but the goal is that you are aligned with the job you're applying for. So always keep that in mind. A big question that we get a lot is if I go to my resume builder, I'll see two different scores, the match score, which we just covered, and the regular resume score, which is at 62%. If I go back into my resume, I can see that this analysis mode is showing me that I have some actions here. Analysis mode is a way to just double check that your resume has some foundational elements that we believe are important for a resume to include. For example, having your email listed, having your target title listed, making sure that the number of achievements in your work experiences aren't too long or too short, that you have enough achievements to make or to create a full picture. Again, these are suggestions. So it's important that when you're working on your resume, you really just take a moment to decide whether or not it's something that you feel like is important. If your first work experience is your work experience and it's the most relevant position you have on the resume, you might decide that that's where the bulk of your achievements are living. And in your other work experiences, which are less relevant, you don't have as many achievements. So just make sure that you're taking note and you're not necessarily trying to get that 100% score. The goal is to just make sure that this resume really represents you and your experiences. As you can see in the free version, we do give you the top 5 basic issues for the resume analysis. And in Teal Plus, it's an unlimited view of those issues, including advanced issues. Awesome. Okay, great. So I know that we have a little over 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to get through the next couple of functions kind of quickly, but hopefully with enough to answer some of your questions. We're going to go into the job tracker. So the job tracker is where all of those jobs live that you're trying to match to that resume and use in matching mode. The job tracker is essentially your one-stop shop for keeping track of where you are in the pipeline for all of the jobs you're interested in and applying to. If you're anything like me, in my last job search, I had a spreadsheet here, I had a spreadsheet here, I had, details all over the place in my drive that I was never able to find. This is supposed to allow you to really keep all of this information centralized and then be able to apply it to the resumes as you're building them. So the hope is that those trackers and the builder and the job tracker go hand in hand, so you can kind of utilize them both in your job search. as you can see here, I already have quite a few jobs listed. 2 of them are in the applying stage. The other are in bookmarked. Each stage has its own guidance, has its own feel. I'll show you if I open this up. You can see that there are several different options for you to kind of explore in the job tracker. For example, the first thing you're going to see are those skills that we just looked at in the matching mode. You can also take notes on the job. So those notes that you took in matching mode will show up here. You can add contacts, which we'll go over the contacts tracker a little bit later, but if there are any important contacts or people in your network that are associated with this role, you can add them here to easily keep track of who you should be following up with. There's a checklist to make sure that you're keeping on top of the things that we think are important as you're in these different stages. And there's also email templates to make sure that if you are following up, or if you're trying to leverage your network or any of these variations, you have the ability to do so. And we give you a little bit of a foundation. For example, something I like to showcase in the job tracker is the interview tracking. If you are in the interview stage of this role, you probably want to keep track of the interviews, the type it was. Maybe you want to add interviewers from your contact tracker or just add them manually. You can keep all of that information centralized in your job tracker. I personally love the job tracker. I think it keeps me organized in life, which I need. I need organization tools. It's just not one of my strengths. And so the job tracker is really super, super important for that. When it comes to adding jobs to the job tracker, there's 2 ways to do this. The first and our less popular way to add a job to the job tracker is to manually add the job. You click this add a new job and you can fill out all of the details. Something important here and something that can be a little bit of a sticking point is when you copy and paste the posting in here, the posting link, it's not going to auto-populate all of these details like job description or job title. You really want to make sure you add those in because this is where we're pulling from that matching mode. So make sure that you're adding in those appropriate details. But my favorite function is the Chrome extension that we have for Teal. So Leah, can you see my LinkedIn page here?
I can.
Beautiful. All right. So as you can see when I'm on LinkedIn, and we have 50 plus supported job boards that you can use the Chrome extension for. And the Chrome extension allows you to easily bookmark jobs, contacts, or companies that you're interested in pursuing. So as I'm on LinkedIn, I can see that my little Chrome extension down here on the right has an action for me. If I open it up, it says, hey, you're on a job board we support. You're not on a job specifically, so we don't exactly know what you're looking at, but if you go to a job posting, we'll go ahead and populate those details. So I'm going to click on a job posting, and voila, all of this information is auto-populated for me. I can, declare my excitement. If this is a job I'm really excited for, maybe I'll put it as a 5. So when I'm in my job tracker, I can prioritize. Maybe it's a job you've already applied to, so you'll just hit that you've applied, and then you can save that job. You can also see some of those top 5 keywords like we mentioned for matching mode, and you can take notes on this job here as well. If I hit save job and then view post on job tracker, there it is. So this keeps you from having to manually input all of that information. And instead, you can go ahead and just leverage the Chrome extension to pull that information in for you. So my suggestion with the job tracker is explore, bookmark lots of jobs that you're interested in, rank them by excitement, put them into the categories they belong in. And from there, you'll have a really clear idea of kind of what your pipeline looks like. And from here, I'm thinking this is a good time now to switch over to Teal Plus. So I'm going to do that. Let me go ahead and log out on my free account, and I'll go ahead and log into my regular account if I can remember my password. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to show you just a couple of the differences between Teal and Teal Plus. As we mentioned earlier, in the Teal Plus, you do get access to all keywords that are listed as high priority or soft skills, any keywords that we believe are important for that job description. So all of these are going to be available to you now that you've upgraded to Teal Plus. If I want to add any achievements or any AI generation into my resume, You can see that there are no credit limitations here now. I have full access. And the same is seen for the analysis. So this resume apparently only has 4 issues, which is great. But typically, all of those other more advanced issues will show up here as well. And that way you can get full access to that resume review. Just like any ChatGPT product, we try to provide a free version and a subscription version, right? The subscription gives you everything that you see in our free version, but just with a little bit more functionality. For example, instead of having to worry about the AI generation credits you have, you can just freely generate AI. So if that's a value add to your search, we want to provide you with a subscription that allows you to kind of explore that further. But we also think it's really important that we have a tool you can use foundationally that doesn't cost anything. And that's why we do have those credits built into the free version, and why you have no limit to how many resumes you can create, how many jobs you can bookmark, and all of that stays put in your account for as long as your account exists. Awesome. Okay. The last place we want to touch on is our contacts tracker. Very similar to the job tracker in that it gives you the opportunity to really keep track of all of those amazing connections in your network. I'm going to go ahead and let Leah kind of talk through why the contacts tracker can be really powerful for you, and talk about some of these functions.
So if you think about LinkedIn, what I actually don't love about LinkedIn is the connections feature. You can basically send a connection and then never speak to them again. So going back and thinking about who was the recruiter for that role, or I know someone had posted about a job they had open, I'm not sure where they are. I love the contacts tracker because it simplifies basically taking all the many connections that you have and you're not actually communicating with, and put it into one specific location for job applications, for anyone who you're interviewing with. I love using this for interview prep because it's a great way to kind of identify who it is you're interviewing with. You can use the notes tab to kind of keep track and identify anything. So if you are networking with people, and there's 2 different ways that you can network. There's proactive networking and there's reactive networking. Proactive networking is when you're actively engaging with people for the sake of building your network and organically reaching those in your industry, those who may be hiring in the future, basically establishing a relationship. And that way, if someone that has opened a role opens, they already have you in the forefront of their mind because you're someone that they've communicated with. They know your skill set. They know the value that you bring. Reactive networking, and both are completely fine to use. Reactive networking is as soon as someone opens a role is when you start networking with someone. That has pros and cons to it. You're actively engaging with someone when they have a role open. However, there are some negative connotations with reactive networking, because as someone has already opened a role, they've already been thinking about probably people that may have been a fit within their network. So definitely stay on top of networking when you're reaching out to people and using the contacts tracker to your advantage. You can connect them to a job within the job tracker and just kind of have everything simultaneously align. You've got the job, you've got your resume, you've got the contacts tracker, you've got everything all in one place. And the notes feature is also great. However, advice for when you are networking, sending just any message out to recruiters saying what jobs you have open, you will not get a response. And why I'm saying that is recruiters can get an average of 50 to 100 plus messages per day. And if you think about that's 50 to 100 plus individual conversations that they want to have with you on top of the work that they're already doing, and perhaps maybe having lunch or a personal life. I don't know if those exist outside of life, but so if you think about that, when you are messaging someone, have intent and be direct and intentional with what it is that you want from someone. So take a few minutes and look at their profile. It doesn't have to be a minute, it could be 30 seconds. It could be 10. Take a look at the company they work for, then open your search results and look for that company. If you search the company name plus careers, the careers page may show up. You may also open up their applicant tracking system, because you can search open roles within Greenhouse or within Lever or some other applicant tracking systems. Take a look, see what roles they have open. If there's a role open that they are linked to that company that that person works for, apply directly. Don't waste time, because when you reach out to someone, you're waiting for their response, whether or not you should apply or not. All of that time hundreds of people have probably already applied. So get ahead of the game, apply directly. And then if you are going to reach out to a recruiter, let them know that you've applied and that you'd love to set up a call, or you want to link up to whoever is the actual recruiter, because you can't always determine who is the right recruiter for every company. Amazon that I worked for had thousands and thousands of recruiters. So it's hard to determine specifically who works for which specific org. So my best advice, apply for the role, get in as soon as possible. And then if you wish to network, you can network after, but relying solely on getting a response from someone will deter you from time it could take to applying for roles. If there is not a role open under the company that you are wanting to network with, you can network with them proactively for when roles do open up, but they can't keep everyone in mind should a role open up. One of the most number one responses I get from a lot of my messages on LinkedIn is, please keep me in mind should a role open up. I've never communicated with you. I don't know you. We've never discussed beyond you asking me for something. So how will I remember you when a role does open up? Because I'm getting all of those messages. So keep that in mind when you are networking with recruiters. Just stay in touch. Keep reaching out. If they don't respond, and it's been a few times, move on to the next, because we don't have enough time in this job market to be dwelling on why one person hasn't responded. We have bills to pay. We've got a family to feed. You want to be moving forward. So own what you can control, and what you can control is your job application, the resume, the cover letter, whatever it is that encompasses your application. You own that. You can also own the message that you send to someone. If you had one opportunity to message someone, what is it that you want to say? Is it, here's all my information, I'm qualified for this role, I've seen that you have a role open and I've applied, let's go ahead and move forward? Great, we've bypassed that entire introduction, the hello, how are you, and we've gotten straight to the point. So keep that in mind when you are networking. And I love using things like the Teal job tracker and the contacts tracker, because it simultaneously keeps all that information forever. And you'll always know who you've networked with, you'll know who you've interviewed with, and you have all those notes ready to go and can use to your advantage when networking.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. I feel inspired by that. Like, take control. Yes, take control. This is, an experience that's unique to you. And I really love that advice. Awesome. Well, we have a couple minutes, so I'm just going to quickly run through just some important account things when it comes to Teal. The first is down here in the left-hand side, you will find your account information. This is also where you can update your subscription details by either upgrading to Teal Plus, changing your current subscription, or changing your payment method. And we also have rolled out a referral application. So essentially, for every 5 people you refer to Teal, you do get $9 in credit, which is 1 week of Teal Plus. And your friends who you refer to Teal also get a referral link, and they can refer friends. It's a great way to kind of have some community in the job search, utilizing the same tool, and then hopefully getting some Teal Plus out of that as well. Lastly, I'll show you, if you have questions, the support center can be found by clicking on this little question mark down there on the left-hand side. All of our support documentation can be found here. It's fully searchable. If there's something missing, let us know. And to let us know, you can go ahead and navigate to the right-hand side. This question mark opens our little widget here. First, you can search for any support articles you need from directly inside Teal. You don't have to leave Teal to get some of these resources, which is great. And second, if you need to reach out to us, you can do that through this widget as well. We're always available to help, and we always want to help. So whether you have a feature request or something's not working, let us know, and we will definitely be there to help you.